Well, here's a number for you. This number might seem far off for you youngins, but it's likely close to the age of many of your parents. This number, 47 years old, was the U.S. life expectancy in 1900, only 120 years ago. Think about that. If you were born only a century earlier, you would have less than 30 years left on average. Today, we enjoy a much higher life expectancy, about 76 years for men and 81 years for women. There exists a lot of debate about why men are destined to live 5 years less than women, but possible causes include higher propensity for risky behaviors and gender norms associated with poorer health behaviors, such as using guns, cigarettes, fast cars, and not seeing the doctor. There's also evidence that men have less social support, with the majority of men reporting only a single close relationship, the one they have with their spouse. But men and women aren't the only demographics to experience unique life expectancies. All over the globe, the life expectancy varies greatly, with more industrialized nations experiencing higher longevity, largely as a factor of increases in economic stability and reliable health services. But before we continue, let's review some terminology. I've already used the term longevity. This refers to the length of life before death. Health researchers often use this as a metric for the health of a community or population, given the assumption that better health should allow people to live longer. For instance, many researchers are interested in blue zones, which are areas of the world with the highest longevity. Researchers will look specifically at the unique behaviors across these communities compared to other average communities to look for differences. We have also seen the term life expectancy, which refers to the average longevity for a specific population. These expectancies are highly dependent on culture, lifestyle, and demographics. Although the average life expectancy for Americans is around 80 years old, there's difference by state or whether people live in rural or urban environments or their ethnic background. Researchers seek to understand what variables are needed for more accurate estimates. Once this life expectancy is understood, researchers can then see what kind of behaviors cause some individuals to die at younger ages than expected, known as premature death, which also examines years of life lost. Years of life lost is a useful tool in identifying the impact of a disease by mathematically placing less weight on deaths that occur closer to the expected lifespan and place greater weight on deaths that happen to younger populations. For example, heart disease is a major cause of death in the U.S. However, these deaths generally happen for older populations or take a while to result in death, thus there are less years of life lost, though of course still a great amount given the frequency of the illness. However, lung infections, HIV, road injuries, and malaria all have lower death rates, but they have quicker onset and affect younger populations, thus having greater years of life lost. If people are interested solely in the death count, however, then they are studying what is termed the mortality rate. This is the number of deaths in a population. Researchers often examine mortality rates within a population with a disease compared to the mortality rates within a population that does not have that disease. On a similar note, researchers might examine morbidity, which is the rate at which a disease is present in a population or individual. Now, as we have seen, life expectancy has been increasing over time, and mortality rates for many diseases have been reduced. However, it's important to note that these terms only take into account how long people are alive, or whether they are dead, but not the quality of life spent while living. For instance, one might live a long time but have poor health during much of that later period. Thus, the term successful or healthy aging was first coined in the 1960s and referred either to individuals who maintained an activity level comparable to their younger counterparts. In the 1980s, researchers suggested that success constituted continued engagement with society, a lack of cognitive decline, and a lack of disease. Really driven by the traditional medical model, these researchers argued for three types of aging. Pathological aging, in which the individual is wrought with disease and decline, normal aging with some decline over time, and successful aging, in which disease is absent despite increased age. Related to this, researchers from a public health perspective suggest that success occurs when morbidity is compressed into the shortest period of time before death. Thus, a person who is sick for a month and then dies would be more successful than a person with a chronic disease who hangs on for 10 years before finally expiring. However, increased interest in positive psychology suggests there are problems with such a medically focused definition. In particular, several studies suggest that older individuals with chronic diseases still believe they are living a healthy older age. This suggests that other factors, such as quality of life, are important to consider. The one conclusion that can be drawn from the literature is that health in older age is a complex construct that is best understood in a multi-component framework. For our purposes here, we define healthy aging in multiple components, entailing physical health or the absence of diagnosed medical disease, as well as mental well-being and life satisfaction, cognitive functioning, social competence, productivity, and longevity. The next video takes an initial look at this aging process.